Thank you so much for joining us today for our session on VMware Cloud on AWS. I'm Sonali Desai. I am leading the product marketing team for VMware Cloud on AWS. And today with me, I have Oleg Olyanov, who is leading the technical marketing team for VMware Cloud on AWS. And also we have Vikash Verma, who is global head for Cloud Program Office at Johnson & Johnson. So this is our agenda for today's session. So in the audience, I know some people, you might have used the service before. Some of you might have heard about it, but want to know more about the service. So we'll start with the overview first. I'll cover the overview section for first 15, 20 minutes. Then I'll call over Vikash, and we'll hear from him about his experience of using the service at Johnson & Johnson. And then Oleg will cover the technical deep dive of the service. So let's begin. So as you all know, most of the customers today have realized in the past recent years that digital transformation is key to success in order to survive in this competitive world. And modern applications, they are at the front and center of this digital transformation. So all of our customers, when we talk to customers, they tell that, okay, now they want to deliver these modern applications because they want to provide accelerated innovation. They want to differentiate themselves from their competitors. They want to, at the same time, they want to reduce their costs. And because of that, they want to deliver the modern infrastructure as well as modern applications. But while delivering these modern applications, what they need the most is IT modernization. So customers, they are asking their IT teams that you want to deliver at better speed, better agility, and within the confines of your existing budgets. And that is not easy. So when we talk to customers, they say that with all this traditional data center model, like deliver these needs for our departments, it's not easy because there are some limitations like static infrastructure, manual operations, then waterfall development processes. And because of that, they want to move to the public cloud. Because as you all know, like public cloud, it is inherently more elastic, more agile, more automated. And because of that, now customers have started migrating their on-premises IT investments, and that includes infrastructure, operations, as well as applications, everything to the public cloud. But when we talk to customers, what they tell us is like all this cloud transformation, it is not that easy. Like initially they think like, okay, we'll move everything to cloud. It is seamless, easy, but that's not the case. So there are different challenges that they face throughout their cloud adoption journey. Like the first one, while migrating their applications to the cloud and while operating in the cloud. So all these different cloud environments, they are built on different technology stacks. So there are different tools, different skill sets than the on-premises environment. Then there are some operational inconsistencies. There are different machine formats, different management consoles, configurations. So they have to tackle all these different challenges while migrating and operating across public cloud and on-prem environment. Then the second challenge is delivering the enterprise applications in the public cloud. So as you know, like customers, they want to deliver the business critical applications. And all of these business critical applications, they have certain needs in terms of like security, performance, availability, manageability, supportability. So all these enterprise applications, when they are migrated to cloud, they have to cater to these needs of being a business critical application. And when you consider the public cloud, so public cloud is basically built on the notion of very granular services, like very small amount of different types of services. So when you want to migrate to the cloud, you need to first think, okay, what are these different types of services that I need to think about if I want to deliver the business critical application? And first, you need to find out these services. Then you need to think about, okay, how am I going to assemble these services or integrate these services? Do I need to do some automation, or do I need to redesign my applications? And last, how I'm going to manage these services. So am I going to manage it myself, or is someone else going to manage it? So all different types of complications if you are trying to deliver these business critical applications in the public cloud. And last, very important one, because now customers want to modernize their existing applications. But this modernizing in the public cloud, it is not that easy as it seems. So all these different applications, they deliver different value. they have different DevOps processes. They have different infrastructure needs. And because of that, like just one refactoring fits all strategy, it doesn't work for all these applications. So there needs to be different level of modernization, like pragmatic modernization needs to be there. And because of all these challenges, customers see decreased agility and lower value when they move to the cloud. So initially, they think that we will have more value, we will migrate to the cloud faster, and all those advantages. But they don't see that value as quickly as possible the way they thought before. And you can see here, like because of all these challenges, there is one stat, very interesting one. So according to this stat, if customer wants to migrate 100 applications, if they want to sequentially refactor and migrate 100 applications to the cloud, then it takes them more than 7 years to do that because of all these challenges. They have to re-architect application, they have to change the code and all that. And because of all this, it lowers the value of cloud migration. It poses more risks when they migrate to the cloud because they might have some business disruption. And also, eventually, they end up paying higher costs when they migrate to the cloud. So in order to address these challenges and help customers navigate through this cloud transformation journey, VMware and AWS came together 5 years back, and we launched this service, VMware Cloud on AWS. And over the last 5 years, we have been evolving this service with a lot of new features and capabilities based on what we hear from the customers and according to their needs. So this year, this is our 5th anniversary, and we are happy to say that we have expanded this service across 21 global regions. And every quarter, we are expanding to some new regions. And so far, we have achieved 16 plus global compliance certifications for the service. And we have released 20 major software-defined data center versions for the service. So for those of you who haven't used the service before, I'll just give an overview of the service. So what exactly is this service? So what we are providing as VMware Cloud on AWS is you get VMware software-defined data center software. So that includes vSphere, vSAN, NSX, along with vCenter management. And that is all running on bare metal AWS EC2 instance. So the key point over here is this is not a nested virtualization. So you get the same performance, scalability, speed as you are getting on premises in your on-prem vSphere environment, because this is not nested virtualization. You are just running the VMware software on bare metal AWS EC2 instance. And the service is delivered, operated, and supported by VMware. So VMware is responsible for providing all the updates, upgrades, patches for the SDDC software. VMware does all the lifecycle management for you. And VMware is your single point of contact for any kind of support. So you don't have to run around with different vendors. Then, because this service is based on as a service model, so you can consume it on on-demand basis. So you can pay for hourly basis, or you can go for like 1 year or 3 subscription where you can save some costs versus hourly basis. Another key differentiator is operational consistency with on-premises. So if you have vSphere on-premises, then same vSphere vCenter APIs you are using in the cloud. So there are no new tools or new skill sets, very minimal learning curve over there. And that's why like you have this fast migration as an advantage over there. Next very important point is seamless large-scale workload portability. So with VMware Cloud on AWS, we are providing a migration tool, which is VMware HCX. And that is provided as a part of the service. You are not paying anything extra for that. But with that tool, you can literally migrate hundreds or thousands of workloads at a time. Also, you can schedule your migration. You can do live migration without any downtime using vMotion as well. Now, this is on the data center side. Now, let's move on to the cloud side. So as you are moving to the cloud, you should get advantage of some of the cloud services, right? So we are providing low latency, high bandwidth access to around 200 plus native AWS services. So if you want to modernize your applications using any of these services, say AI, ML services, you can integrate those with your applications running on VMware Cloud on AWS. And last, very important one is Tanzu services. So that is included as part of the service as well. So we are not just supporting VMs, but we are supporting containerized workloads as well. So as part of Tanzu services, you get fully managed Kubernetes runtime, and you get Tanzu Mission Control Essentials, which is a management console for managing your containerized workloads. Now let's look at some of the key use cases here. So the first and foremost is next generation applications. So if you want to create any new modern applications or you want to modernize your existing applications, you can do that. Next, very widely adopted use case across our customers is cloud migration. So customers have been using this service to migrate some specific applications like SQL Server or Oracle, or they have used it for completely evacuating from their data center. So there are some customers who are like not happy with their colo facility, lease is going to get expired, they are not happy with the SLAs and all that, and they want to get rid of their on-prem data center, so they moved their workloads to VMware Cloud on AWS. Another widely adopted use case is data center extension, where customers want to expand their footprint, or they want to meet the burst capacity needs. Like, for example, say some seasonal spikes in demand coming up, or some event coming up, and for that they need IT infrastructure. Then they have used VMware Cloud on AWS for that. Also, another widely adopted use case is virtual desktops, especially during the pandemic. So customers, they have literally they spin up like thousands of virtual desktops in the cloud using either Horizon or Citrix on top of VMware Cloud on AWS. So they can do the desktop bursting, or they can have disaster protection for their virtual desktop infrastructure in the cloud. And last, very important one is disaster recovery and ransomware recovery. So we have seen a lot of traction, especially in this use case. So if customers, they want to set up any new DR environment, or they want to complement their existing DR environment because they want to reduce their on-prem DR costs, then they have used either VMware Site Recovery or VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery, which are the add-ons on top of VMware Cloud on AWS. Or you can also use some of our VMware-ready partner solutions, which are like validated and certified on VMware Cloud on AWS. Say, for example, if you have used like Veeam or Druva before, then you can use those solutions as well for your DR needs. So again, as I mentioned, this is a cloud service, and we have all like customer support and service operations and response teams in place to help you anywhere if you need support. And this is the pricing and packaging slide. So as I mentioned, we are providing you the complete package. So you are getting AWS hardware, you are getting VMware software, you are getting the global support, entire lifecycle management from VMware, and optionally you can purchase additional add-ons for your additional use case needs. You can either purchase it from VMware or AWS or any of our partners. And in terms of consumption, there are multiple options. So you can go for hourly consumption, or you can go for 1 year or 3 year subscription. You can either pay upfront for these subscriptions, or you can pay monthly. Also, we recently introduced something called as flexible subscription. So suppose, say, you purchased a 3-year subscription for region Oregon today, and now after 1 year, you have some other needs, and you want to have subscription in some other region on East Coast. Then you can move to the flexible subscription so that you can change your region later as well. So this is our regional availability map. The service is available across 21 global regions today, and soon it's going to be available in Africa, Cape Town, and Middle East, Bahrain. And on the bottom side, you can see most of our compliance certifications. So we are getting a lot of different compliance certifications across different regions, and every quarter we are expanding on that. So these are some of the key differentiators as compared to other native cloud options. The first and foremost is this is a rich turnkey enterprise cloud service. So we are packing up everything together. Everything is packaged together. You don't need to have like different services bolted on or outsourced or packaged into individual applications. Everything packaged together for you for running your enterprise grade business critical applications. Then accelerated time to value, because as I mentioned, you get that consistent infrastructure, consistent operations, and because of that, no application re-architecture or refactoring, and because of that, you can migrate your workloads or migrate your applications in cost-effective and less risky manner. Again, consistent and familiar platform. The next very important one is pragmatic, non-disruptive modernization. So when you decide, like, I want to move to the cloud, you don't have to modernize all of your applications at once. So you can do it step by step according to like where you are in your cloud journey. So that is another key advantage. And we have a rich set of deeply integrated modernization options already integrated into the service. And last one is compelling TCO. So I'll talk about that here. So when we talk to our customers, they tell us like, okay, I have compared this to some public cloud infrastructure as a service option, and there I'm getting VM for pennies. Here you are charging like $1 for host and all that. So that is not like apple to apple comparison. So here we would like to show you the apple to apple comparison and why VMware Cloud and AWS has lower TCO as compared to other cloud options. So first and foremost, what you are getting as part of VMware Cloud on AWS is you are consuming it on host basis. And when you purchase the host, you get everything packaged together. So you get compute, you get storage, networking, as well as all the management capabilities, everything packaged together. So for example, if you go for any other virtual instance and purchase it, then you don't get that shared persistent storage. But here we are giving you the shared persistent storage in the form of vSAN. In other cases, you have to, depending upon like what performance and availability you want, you have to purchase that persistent storage separately. So that adds up additional costs. And that is just one example. So there are multiple services that are packaged together. Then the second one is another important one, because this is based on host-based consumption model. So basically, you have the control on like how you are utilizing the hardware. So because we are giving you the traditional vSphere capabilities, like for example, overcommitting the memory or oversubscription of CPU, or when you consider VMware HCX, then you can compress the network traffic over WAN and you can reduce your egress cost. So because you can take advantage of all these capabilities and then you can optimize the underlying hardware resource utilization using these capabilities. So that is another key factor for reducing the TCO. Then the third one, so you won't end up using all the capabilities listed out here, like distributed firewall or vMotion, but these are some additional capabilities, like for example, stretch clusters, right? So stretch clusters where we are providing you 4 nines of SLAs using stretch clusters, and that is provided as a part of the service. So we are not charging you anything extra for that. You get high availability, resilient infrastructure with stretch clusters, but in other cases, they will charge you extra for that. So these are some of the like nice to have capabilities that are provided free of cost as a part of the service. And last very important one is the migration cost. So because everything is different, like not same tools, not same skill set, so you have to hire new staff, you have to retrain your existing staff, and that adds up lots of costs when you migrate to the cloud. So if you calculate all of these costs, then you end up saving around 50% of the cost if you compare to native cloud option. And these are like a couple of other studies that we did. So on the left-hand side, you can see we did one study with Forrester. So they interviewed some of our existing VMware Cloud on AWS customers who were using traditional vSphere on-premises. And they did a 3-year comparison for 800 VMs. And what they figured out was after moving to VMware Cloud on AWS, they were able to save around 53% of the costs. Those are like the recurring savings in terms of infrastructure and operations costs. And on the right-hand side, this is another study that IDC did. So they interviewed the existing VMware Cloud on AWS customers, and these customers, they were using some other native cloud options before moving to VMware Cloud on AWS. But because of all these challenges, they were spending a lot of money, and after moving to VMware Cloud on AWS, they were able to save around 57% of cost because they eliminated this costly rework and refactoring. And their migration time, it got reduced literally from years to months when they moved to VMware Cloud on AWS. So these are some of the customers who are using VMware Cloud on AWS. So this is not an exhaustive list, only the customers who have given us permission to use their logos. So those are listed over here. But you can see we have customers across different industries and different geographies. I'll just go over quickly through a couple of customer stories here. The first one is the College of New Jersey, the educational institution in America. So what they wanted was, like after the pandemic, they wanted to provide the online digital learning system or learning platform for their students. And they used VMware Cloud on AWS. They migrated their workloads from on-premises to VMware Cloud on AWS. And they saw like significant savings, around $200,000 worth of annual savings in terms of hardware costs and around $26K in utility bills. So that's like a significant amount of savings there. Also, American company, so this is another architecture firm in the United States, and they wanted to have a DR and ransomware recovery solution in the cloud because they wanted to reduce their on-prem DR costs. And they used VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery on top of VMware Cloud on AWS, and they were able to bring down their RPO from 4 hours to 30 minutes when they moved to VCDR. So that is really very impressive. Now, let's switch gears and move to another solution, which is VMware Cloud on AWS Outposts. So we announced the general availability of this solution last year. And so why this new solution, right? So we have been hearing from the customers, like they like the VMware Cloud on AWS model. They want that cloud model in their own data center. And because of like several reasons, like they have some low latency applications that they don't want to move to the cloud, or they have some local data processing needs. And because of like a lot of data transfer cost, they don't want to move those to the cloud. Or there are some data sovereignty or regulatory reasons, and because of that, they don't want to move those workloads to the cloud region. So for those customers, we launched this service, which is VMware Cloud on AWS Outposts. And with that, you get the same VMware SDDC software running on the AWS Outpost bare metal infrastructure that is delivered as a service, and that runs in your own data center. So that is the key advantage over here. And you get the same like the lifecycle management done by VMware, and AWS will be responsible for any break-fix support if there is any issue with the hardware. And VMware Cloud on AWS Outpost is also available globally. So if you are interested in learning more, you please just contact your VMware representative. And with that, let me call over Vikash. Vikash, if you can please come on stage, and Oleg. Have a seat.
Grab a seat.
Anywhere is fine. Yep. So first of all, thank you, Vikash. Would you like to introduce yourself?
No, pleasure is mine. Vikas Verma. I'm responsible for Cloud Program Office within J&J. This office focuses on cloud adoption, cloud engineering, and cloud FinOps.
Thank you, Vikash. Vikash, we would like to understand, like Johnson & Johnson, you decided to move to the cloud. So what were the key driving factors? Why did you decide to move to the cloud? And if you can just walk us through the process, like how was it like for you when you decided to move to the cloud?
So we started our hybrid multi-cloud journey in 2014. And it's primarily because we had some aging infrastructure in our on-prem. We're seeing a lot of reliability challenges. We're seeing a lot of application downtime because of the hardware software lifecycle management issues. So we established this as a program where we modernized our own data center with VMware Cloud, VMware SDDC on-prem, and we built the private cloud using that capability. At the same time, we started exploring public cloud, especially for the POC type of things, where we can quickly get an environment, run a quick POC, see if it's something valuable that we want to mature in a further state. In 2019, we established a cloud-first strategy with some more focus around driving applications to the cloud, using cloud-native services, et cetera. So now, fast forward now, we're running 45% of our workload in public cloud, 55% on-prem. And that on-prem includes our enterprise data centers. It includes a number of our remote sites, which is around plants, manufacturing sites, distribution center, et cetera.
Nice. Okay. And Vikash, like when you decided to move to the cloud, then how did you decide like which workloads you want to move to the cloud?
The cloud placement itself is a very complex problem. You have to account for some of the regulatory requirements, some of the regional data residency requirements, and then you have to, since we are in hybrid and multi-cloud environment, which cloud is the right cloud? You heard VMware Cloud on AWS. You heard about AWS native as well. So there's a lot of options. So what we have done is defined a set of architecture pattern. And we look at the use case and what use case makes sense to run where. And using those architecture pattern, we deploy certain type of workloads on different cloud environments, including our on-prem environment.
Nice. Okay. And because you said like you have migrated some of the workloads to the cloud, right? So what are some of the benefits you are seeing now? Like have you started seeing some benefits in terms of like costs or availability or any of those sort?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of benefits that we are seeing. First of all, we're seeing the exponential growth of our compute and storage. And we couldn't have just delivered that type of a burst demand, exponential growth with just on-prem type of capability. So that's where I think the VMware Cloud on AWS made a lot of sense for us. We had our own environment where we're running DR, managing all of that with 100% of the footprint for business critical application. So from that perspective, when we're moving some of those workloads on VMware on Cloud on AWS, we don't have to maintain 100% of the compute storage footprint. We can reduce it to just replicate, and when we need to actually use the DR, we can scale. So definitely seeing some of the benefits around that.
Yeah, so basically the on-demand scalability is like one of the key benefit for you. And for our audience, like what advice will you give, like if they want to like drive cloud adoption at scale, then from Johnson & Johnson experience, what would be your advice for them?
I think first developing a right business case is critical. Yeah, what makes sense to move, and understanding why you want to move certain things to the cloud. And that could be for the cost reason, that could be enabling the business, that could be for agility, that could be for, hey, you have burst type of application, seasonal application, et cetera, that would make sense. And from there, you really need to have the right foundation engineering. There's a lot of concern around security, compliance, et cetera. So how do you deploy this level of compliance and security you had in your on-prem environment into the cloud? That's a very critical aspect. And then the whole financial model, when you're running an on-prem, your capital-based funding model, you're deploying compute storage based on the capital spend, and now you're moving into more of a consumption model, whereas it's all expense-based, and it's variable, it's not fixed. When you're in a capital model, it's kind of a fixed budget that you have to manage, whereas it's variable, so it gets a little bit complicated and tricky in terms of how you manage that. So those are the three areas I would suggest everybody to focus on.
Great, thank you. And we'll be here, so if you have any further questions for Vikash, we will be here after the session. And with that, we'll move over to the technical deep dive section from Oleg.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really a great pleasure to have you here. And before moving on, I actually would like to ask you a couple of questions. So let me start with a very simple one, because before doing a technical deep dive, I would like a little bit better understand about what you know about VMware. Like, raise your hand if you know about VMware, just anything about VMware. Okay, oh, that looks good. Okay, then another one, a little bit harder. Anyone know what VMware ESXi is and why we are using it? Okay? Oh, good, not bad, not bad. Okay, and the last one here. Who is comfortable going on stage and explaining how VMware vMotion works? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a couple of them. Okay, nice. I think that would help me to fit this technical deep dive into what you would expect and what you can get from the service. Let us look under the hood. Sonali was very good explaining all the business benefits. Now let us see how the service looks from the technical perspective. So let us start from some configuration maximums, like what you can get. And as Sonali mentioned, right, the service is based on a bare metal hardware. This bare metal hardware is deployed on top of AWS managed physical data center. What is happening after that? We deploy our software. ESXi, it's our hypervisor, right? We deploy NSX for networking, we deploy vSAN, and we're going to talk about it just in a minute. And the scalability of the service and flexibility and elasticity of public cloud, that's really a key point, right? You can start as slow as 2 hosts, right? That is your entry point to get the production support. However, you can grow this environment up to 320 hosts if needed, right? And you can deploy up to multiple SDDC, and each SDDC for you is just a vCenter management, right? So it's basically a single vCenter managing 320 hosts. You can get up to 2 by default in a different region, or actually it's no limit, right? You can scale up to 50 if you need it, right? Okay, let us move on. What kind of hardware we have, right? It's a key thing. That is the hardware that is going to run your workload. Right now, the service offers 3 types of hosts, and we'll look at them. i3 is your basic type of the host that you can get right now based on a Broadwell and half terabyte of RAM. i3EN is a really interesting one, right? i3EN is giving you a host with a maximum storage capacity. And what is important with our service, all the hosts that you have here, they're shipped with local NVMe disk, and we'll be using local NVMe storage for really fast storage access to your data, right? So i3EN is a storage-bound host type. And last but not the least, that is a new addition to our service, i4i Metal, right? It's really like latest Intel instance available right now with Ice Lake processors, 128 cores available on a single host, right? So if you are even starting with 2 hosts, right, you will still get 256 CPU to run your workload, which is pretty fine to run, I would say, like medium business, right? Just with 2 hosts deployed on your SDDC, right? And we can scale up to 320 hosts of them, right? So that is how you can go up and down, and flexibility of the service. That is we are going to talk about how we actually sizing and scaling the service helps you to leverage this cloud capacity. In terms of performance, right? So as expected, i4i featuring latest processor type would outperform all previous instances. However, the question is, right, what I can get, right? And you see that on the average, it will be 125% performance improved compared to your i3. We're also offering you a service to migrate from your current host, which is i3 and i3EN, to i4i if it's needed. In terms of running some workload, and we did a test by running SQL Server on top of that host. Again, i4i shows you a better performance even compared with i3EN. So i3EN might be still there for some storage-bound workload. However, for running your general purpose database workload, application, i4i, that is a really primary host type for you. And that is the next thing. And I'm really excited talking about it, right? AWS Cloud is very different in terms of what we have in our data center on premises, right? If we are going to build availability on top of AWS Cloud, you will get it in application, right? You will size your EC2 instances, you will have load balancers, you will have all those things to cover against failures. What our service provides is basically expected availability on top of AWS Cloud. We will cover for host-level redundancy. And it's as simple as identifying a host that has any hardware failures, not necessarily having a failure right now, right? So we are running a lot of monitoring to see if it's a potential for host failure. After that, we will introduce a new host to your SDDC. This is non-billable host. We will migrate workload, evacuate the host, and after that, you will running on the same number of hosts again, right? So compared to on-premises, where if a host failure happens, you will need to get a new host, or will need to use your spare and then wait for a new spare to arrive, right? This is happening just using elasticity of public clouds. Okay, you might ask, what happens if a rack failure happens in AWS data center? We are leveraging partition placement group, and that's a really cool technology, right? We are separating hosts between different racks. What we ensure is that hosts inside of the same cluster, and each cluster can have up to 16 hosts, are spread between individual racks, right? So individual rack failure is not going to take your cluster down. And not only that, we also can provide you availability on top of AWS availability zones, not built into application, right? We do provide you a way to run what we call stretch cluster, and we will talk about it in a minute, right? Stretch cluster itself, we span 2 availability zones. We require for those regions to have 3 availability zones, right? Because if availability zones fail, we would need to understand what kind of availability zone is not there, right? For split brain scenario, we need to have a third zone where we deploy a witness. And after that, we have half of your hosts deployed in one AZ, half of the hosts deployed in the second AZ. And we synchronously replicate all VM disk between 2 availability zones, right? So in case of availability zone failures with a stretch cluster, we provide you access to your application. And not only that, right now you can start as low as 2 hosts to start with a stretch cluster. And 2-host stretch cluster is a fully supported production environment. So one again, 2 hosts, eye for eye, enough to run your mid-sized workloads, right? And you can get it in a stretch cluster configuration. Another thing is, right, moving VMware environment to public cloud, from my perspective, the real thing is elasticity, right? Every time when you have on premises, like I have a new demand for a new project. I need to deploy like 500 VMs. Okay, the first thing, I need to get my hardware. I need to wait before its hardware will be shipped, racked, connected, all of that thing, right? And then I will figure out it's actually not 500, but 2,000 VMs, right? So I would need to wait for another time to get everything in place. The thing in a public cloud, we have access to, in quotes, unlimited capacity, right? What it does mean for us, then we have a flexibility of adding workload, supporting your application into the cluster in a matter of minutes. We call this service Elastic DRS, and how it works. We constantly monitor for resource consumption in your cluster. Once you are coming to a point where you're going to consume all storage, we are going to add a host. And in the matter of time, if you'll see, OK, now it's like your deprovisioned number of VMs, you do not need that host. We actually will remove this host from the cluster, right? And that is also the same you can do why, for example, like Sonali mentioned, virtual desktop workloads, right? You have a spike when you start all the desktops. We will bring host up. Now your users are done with your work for today, so we can scale down the cluster. The same thing is with disaster recovery. You can run as small as 2 hosts as a preparation for your disaster recovery. And if in need, we can deploy up to 12 hosts in the parallel to actually build the infrastructure for you, satisfy your need to run once you recover from disaster in your data center, and then bring it back and scale back to 2 hosts, right? So elasticity is one of the key technology things for this service. Now let us take a look at the storage. I spent a lot of time supporting business-critical application on vSphere. And performance is a key thing in that area. And believe me or not, like 9 out of 10 cases, they would hit storage. So storage is a key thing for your performance, for your capacity. How we are working along that? As I mentioned, VMware Cloud on AWS leverage vSAN as a primary storage. What vSAN means, we use local NVMe disk on each host. Those local NVMe disks will be combined into a single cluster-wide data store available to place your workload. Obviously, to scale that data store, what you need to do, your ideas, how I would scale, do I need to add host, remove host? Ideas, add host to scale workload? Right. Exactly. So vSAN is scales together with compute resources, right? If I need more storage, I need to add more host, which is fine for your general workload type. However, as soon as we move to applications require more storage, what are my options? In this case, we just recently added an option to attach NFS data store natively to VMware Cloud on AWS. And we will talk about the option here just in a minute. However, you can use FSx for NetApp ONTAP or VMware Cloud Flex Storage to provide you native NFS data store, not in guest, right, but a data store that is mapped to your vCenter that you can use for all the automation for all of your VMs. Critical thing, right? So one again, right now, in terms of options, we not only support scaling with compute, we support scaling just storage by adding NFS, either from FSx or compute. How I would manage my storage? The thing is, vSAN is integrated into hypervisor. What does it mean for us? The way to manage it is the same web client that you use to manage your compute workloads. Storage management is integrated into that. And last but not the least, VMware Cloud on AWS comes with SLAs. SLAs is a VMware guarantee that your workload is staying up and running on this particular cluster for the matters that we agreed. However, it also turns to be a couple of constraints, right? For example, if you decided to use RAID 0 means no availability, right? If a single host goes down, all VMs configured with RAID 0 would be down as well, right? Because we spread on the vSAN object storage, we spread this VMDK between multiple hosts. That's why we don't support RAID 0 for production workload. You can do it, but no SLA will be provided. To help you to adhere to SLA, we introduced what is called automatic policy management. We require your workload to use RAID 1 before you get to up to 5 hosts. Starting with 5 hosts, you will need to move to RAID 6. A RAID 6 and 2 failures to tolerate. The reason for that, once we're growing up, and you are now having more than 6 hosts in a cluster, it's a statistical probability for 2 host failures at the same time. To accommodate that, we are moving you to RAID 6. And VMware takes care of that, right? So we assign automatically this policy to your VM and VMDK created. You don't need to care. If you want to change it and, for example, use RAID 1 on a host with 10 cluster, you're absolutely free to do so, right? However, we are helping you to adhere to SLA and maintain level of availability required to run in the public cloud. Stretch cluster. And I really like this slide, right? It's explained how this thing works. It also gives you an understanding of stretch cluster into a lot of details. In a stretch cluster, again, we manage storage using storage policy management integrated into vCenter. Each VM is configured to use synchronous replication. What does it mean if I'm writing to my VMDK? We will simultaneously write on both sides of your AZ, meaning that your writes will go across AZ link, right? Also, what does it mean? That from a single VM perspective, from compute resources, we have only a single host where this VM is running. Right? It could be an AZ-A, could be an AZ-B. However, as we have 2 copies of data, it actually doesn't matter where we are running this VM. We always read locally, right? Improving your access to the data. And In terms of stretch cluster, right, we can do it as small as 2 hosts, as I mentioned. You can deploy 16 hosts. We fully support all the services on top of stretch cluster. And last but not the least, remember that you are still running on top of a public cloud. And one of the most costliest resources in your public cloud is networking. All networking traffic, you're going to be charged for that. So what we did for this particular service, we included 10 petabytes of network traffic, cross-AZ traffic, at no cost with each and every stretch cluster deployment, right? Helping you not only to gain availability, but also to save on your cost while moving the data. OK, let us talk about NFS options. That is the one, and that's the reference architecture for everyone interested, how to use FSx with NetApp ONTAP on top of VMware Cloud on AWS. It's a good news. What we are showing here is multi-AZ FSx deployment. We just recently introduced single AZ support for FSx, right? And we can connect to an SDDC. We're always using Transit Connect to go from VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC to FSx for NetApp ONTAP, right? So size it correctly. We have a lot of documentation to help you. And at the booth, we have our PM responsible for this offering. So if any interested, please come on to our VMware Cloud on AWS booth and ask your questions, right? We will be happy to address them. We do have also an offering from VMware, which is VMware Cloud Flex Storage. This option is right now in preview phase, right? You already can leverage it, right? But we are still working on bringing it as a general available offer. And it's the important thing here with Flex Storage. You will get access to a really large capacity. Like we are starting with 25 terabytes as our minimal chunk of data that you can buy on a Flex Storage, right? So for smaller data, FSx for NetApp ONTAP might be your primary choice. OK, let me cover networking. And one again, from my perspective, networking is the key to understand how cloud deployment works. Basically, we are not only interested in deploying SDDC, deploying VMs, deploying application. We need to have a way to access our VMs, to actually use the services. So how networking looks like. On VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC, all networking is powered by NSX. We are running NSX and each and every SDDC. And we have a number of routers deployed, right? So what is important for you? We are separating management, which is vCenter, NSX, all the tools that you are using to manage your VMware deployment from your compute, right? So compute or your VMs are always running on the different routers. It's no communication between them. We do support a separate entity which is called Connected VPC. Connected VPC, it's your own VPC created based on your own AWS account, and we are transparently making available all network services in your Connected VPC available to your VM running in VMware Cloud on AWS. Meaning if you deploy S3 or Snowflake or FSx into Connected VPC, we will make network routes work. You still need to work on firewalling, right? Because access control is still your responsibility. But from networking perspective, it's all will be covered. We have a number of services running on T0 router, which is like connected to on-premises, integration with Direct Connect. And we do support BGP as a primary protocol to exchange route information between on-premises or VMware Cloud on AWS or native AWS deployment. For interconnectivity, right, we know that a lot of customers is actually looking for VMware Cloud on AWS as a way to bring on-premises deployment AWS Cloud. What we do support is Direct Connect. VPN, or even you can use VMware Hybrid Cloud Extension to create a tunnel between HTX appliances. No need to use any other tools, no need to establish VPN or direct connect if your primary use case is just migration. And that's an interesting one. For all really complex network deployment, where you have multiple SDDCs or multiple VPCs inside of AWS, inside of a single region, or between multiple regions, you can use what is called VMware Transit Connect. It's a VMware managed version of AWS Transit Connect. The main goal of it is to help you with a scalable deployment. I mentioned you can deploy up to 50 SDDCs, right? How can I interconnect that? I will use a SDDC group, and I will use Transit Connect to exchange routes between them, and that will be optimized to exchange routing information between my SDDCs. I talk about migration, and migration is a huge use case, right? However, what is my option? I talk about it that flexibility is one of the key here. That's why we provide you with a lot of different technology options, starting with hybrid cloud extension, just vSphere vMotion that I asked about, or disaster recovery sync, and we'll talk about disaster recovery just in a minute, or just a content library between vCenters. One, again, key here is different options that you will have. Also, you can control what is happening with your VM. Is it staying live, meaning you can reach the VM even during operation, like moving from on-premises to AWS public cloud? You will need, of course, to have L2 extension done by hybrid cloud extension appliance. Or it could be cold migration, or it could be warm migration with HTX. We just did a workshop on it, explaining how we can use bulk migration or pre-replicating VMs between VMware Cloud on AWS and on-premises. OK, let us take a look at a little bit other angle. One of the real interesting and key scenarios is using disaster recovery and ransomware protection with VMware Cloud on AWS. Why it's important? As I mentioned, we have an access to flexible, elastic capacity on VMware Cloud on AWS. How does it help? We can start with just 2-host deployment and use everything else just to store your data on S3 and restore as needed. Now we added a new option to the service with ransomware recovery protection. And ransomware recovery helps you to check your backups and find the right one that is affected by ransomware. Really automated service for you provided by VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery. And one more new service. We all talk about that you have an access to physical hosts, that you can start with 2 hosts, deploy your infrastructure. But what if I need just to run a handful amount of VMs, like 5 VMs, 10 VMs? What are my options? We hear you, and that's why we introduced VMware Cloud Flex Compute. Right now, it's in the preview option, but that is a technology provides you with a way to get just a chunk of data. So basically, you can buy 4 vCPU, 8 GB of RAM, 20 GB of storage, combine them all together, and deploy VMs. VMware will take responsibility of managing underlying SDDC for you. It will be a shared environment for sure, right? However, to start small, that is your option. And you can also combine them from networking perspective with existing SDDC. So you can deploy SDDC in one region and use Flex Compute in another region. How we can help you, right? For the migration thing, we also introduce a multi-cloud adoption program. With that one, you can get support from VMware for migration project. If you are interested, come and talk to us, and we will find the way to explain all the things about this multi-cloud program. Just visit us at VMware booth. We do provide you with limited time promotions. based on either discount on a starting with your VMware Cloud and AWS deployment, or you can have an additional discount for a small deployment available for all types of hosts at the moment. Talk to your VMware or AWS account team if you would like to know more about this offering. And the last but not the least, right, where I can find more information. Start with understanding VMware Cloud, look at TCO, and experience it by using our hands-on lab. It's a bunch of resources that can help you to better understand VMware Cloud on AWS. And I really appreciate you being here today with us. We still have 5 minutes for your questions. And if you wouldn't be able to take your question right now, find us at VMware booth. We would be really happy to answer your questions, either from business perspective or from technology perspective. And once again, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. Thanks a lot for coming, and I will open this for questions.